But again, my life is much too real to be pretending anything. Not only that, you getting on Instagram saying all of this gang street stuff. Man, the police is on Instagram. They got task force on social media to catch pedophiles, drug dealers, prostitution, gangs. You understand?
Definitely.
And if you're professing to be in that street life and you're not aware of this, then you're the wrong person to be leading in anything or speaking for that matter. So we talking about, I ain't never heard nobody get up with a bullhorn on the street corner and start professing their crimes. And we didn't do that. And like Big Y said, the only followers that we had was somebody trying to smoke you. And that goes that philosophy goes deep because, a lot of people know that the Bloods and Crips, we came out of the Black Panther Party.
Right.
A brother did Clee did a nice documentary called Bastards of the Party. And he expressed that, Clee from Anthem. But he did a nice documentary, and it was called Bastards of the Party. And what he was talking about, Bastards of the Black Panther Party. Because of that connection with Bunchy Carter, who was a Slauson. You see what I'm saying? So when you go and who was assassinated also on UCLA campus. So let's not forget that either. So once that happened, and then they started arresting people like Geronimo Pratt and all of them, we were left with Tookie and them. We were left with Bartender and Puddin' to lead us in whatever it is that we ended up doing as children. Because we forget that these gang members that we're talking about, Tookie, Puddin', Raymond Washington, these were juveniles.
Mm-hmm.
We like to look at them and their adulthood and paint them as monsters, but we forget that these were juvenile delinquents. Just like the founding of most gangs that were established in Los Angeles back then were all founded and established by juvenile delinquents. The older who considered an OG was somebody probably like 25, 28.
So if you were arrested, you say at 16, and we were just talking about the stories that happened around 12, 13, say you went to the orphanage around 12. So
yeah,
how would
13? I was 13 because I remember it was my 13th birthday, and we all kind of celebrated it.
So what type of things were you encountering and going through in between those next 3 years that got you to that point?
See, that's where because it escalated. The gangs escalated. I was good at sports, bro, and I had choices. I had a coach, man. I ran a 100-yard dash in the 998. And I had coaches at Kennedy High School that wanted me to come out and play. But I was caught up. I was gangbanging, man. And this is during the time where we wore bandanas. It wasn't just, we wore bandanas then, man. So I kept getting into fights and getting into trouble, and I wasn't going to school because I couldn't really concentrate on all that stuff because going home, life was real. We out there selling dope. I was out there selling, man, I was selling Sherm at 12, PCP. You see what I'm saying? So now I'm out there in the apartments, I'm selling dope, crack, but I never was really into that. I used to just do it just to get the money. Do it enough just to get the money, but you will be surprised what you see in it. And as a young child, at 12 and developing, and you seeing dudes get hit with bumper jacks, you seeing dudes getting their chest cavity, blown out. It numbs you. It numbs you, and it actually tampers with the development of that child. When we talk about post-traumatic stress, this is why when I said shootouts up close, I put emphasis on that we were children. because
Right.
this is what I wanted to know. I want you to realize that we carry these traumas into our adulthood. These are traumas, unanswered traumas. These are, unaddressed traumas. How many children do you know that probably saw a drive-by? And I was seeing this stuff on the regular because, like I said, our apartment complex was popular for being headquarters for the Pacoima Piru Bloods. So if any Pacoima Piru Blood did anything outside of those apartments, the Crips would retaliate, or the rival gangs would retaliate at that place. And so that place, that beacon of retaliation was my home. That's where I laid my head. You see what I'm saying? So it drove us in a way, to be more. And like I said, B Crazy and them went to jail. Diesel went to college to play football. And Evil was the only one that was out, and started really lacing us on how to survive out there. How to bust back and make sure that, understand what it was that we were seeing. Because a lot of us young, we didn't understand what we were seeing. We didn't know about this influx of gangs that was coming in. We
And it
didn't
got
understand that.
and it got worse. I'm asking, and it got worse during the crack epidemic and everything during the crack era. You seen a
Yeah,
shift? Okay.
a shift. I mean, tell me, we seeing people we ain't never saw before. And they coming out with ill intentions. It's not no country smile high neighbor. They coming through, and they was coming through seriously, gunning, and we like, hold up. Once we realized it, then we went, man, this stuff becomes serious. Now, gang banging wasn't fun anymore. It was a matter of survival. Now now that anger was perfectly placed now. Now it's not a matter of, me running the football now. It's how big a gun I can get my hands on. What one can I get that spit, a little better, because my life may depend on it. And once, like I said, once you out there and you start shooting, and people know you now. They see your face, they see your car. So now they looking for you. Not only do you worried about the police looking for you, no, you got to worry about rivals looking for you. And the problem with that is not only or you got gangs looking for you, you got the police looking for you, you got so-called homeboys looking at you. So now you're becoming a popular figure in the neighborhood. And that's what happened. I ended up catching a murder. And because I was a popular figure in the neighborhood, and let me tell you this story. This is part of my transition too. My homeboy told on me. Now, my own homeboy came in and took the stand against me for a murder that I committed with my hands. And when I say with my hands, I say I stabbed him 19 times and caught in the gang fight. And so they figured that, man, we got to get this dude up out of here. But they had no real connection. I had no record. The only connection that they had to me is me going to, McLaren Hall. But I had no criminal record. So they had nothing really to connect me to the gang. But they brought in one of my homeboys to come in and, testify against me. He pointed me out. Yeah, he's a gang member. This is his name, Lil Evil, da 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 da. Now, let me tell you this. That same trial, there was a guy there, a Crip, that I knew. He knew me. I shot that man. He knew I shot him. And that man got up on the stand and told the police it wasn't me. Looking dead at me. And the DA was getting frustrated because they wanted to, treat him as a hostile witness because they kept saying he was holding to the gang code, the street code, and he was telling them, nah, that ain't him. But the look on his face, is an indication that, yeah, I know that's him. And the DA kept trying to point that out. Look how they looking at each other. That they know each other. And he was like, nah, that ain't him. My enemy, kept it G. And my homeboy delivered me. That's the point.
Can
Yeah.
I ask you a question? With respect to the individuals that lost their life, are you able to? You already served time for, went and transitioned, and
Yeah.
went to jail, transitioned, changed yourself, came home. Now are mentor to get the youth to go in a different
Yeah.
direction. Are you able to go to that morning of the day that you actually committed that crime and what led up to you even doing these things? Are you able to talk
Man.
about that day?
Yeah. Yeah, I can. But I may not mention his name for the respect of him and his family,
Right,
so I always try to avoid a lot of, just going more into it because I don't want to open old wounds.
right.
But, uh, but yeah, I'll go into that. And it's a trip because I was at a point in even out there that things was getting so tough, man. I was finding myself in shootouts and, all of this. And I told you, the coach wanted me to play football.
Mm-hmm.
Bro, I was trying to get my life together. I went and checked in to Kennedy High School. I was going to play football. I ended up getting a job at Haagen-Dazs ice cream store, and I'm saying that because that morning I had, that evening I had came back from work, working at Haagen-Dazs. And this is the night that Colors came out. Remember the movie
Mm.
Colors? It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
it was the premiere. It was supposed to come out that Friday, and all my homeboys was going to go see Colors. Everybody was like, "Yeah, man, we should go see Colors," And I was dressed in white at the time, and I said, "Man, I'm not dressed right." So I'm in all white, man. I'm not going to dress in no white and go to no game gathering. So uh, they was like, "Oh well, man, change clothes." And then I said, "Nah," because the where the Americana was, the theater, it was right in between the two neighborhoods in Sepulveda and Pacoima. So I was like, "Well, where they gonna go see the movie?" And he said, my homeboy said, "At the Americana." And I said, "And y'all going to go to the Americana to go see the movie?" He said, "Yep, we going to the Americana." And I said, "So let me get this straight. You got the Crips in Sepulveda and the Bloods in Pacoima going to Panorama to see a movie about Bloods and Crips." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "It ain't gonna be no shooting. It ain't gonna be nothing." And he was like, "Well, it might." And I said, "Again, I'm in white." So I said, "I'm not going. I can't
Mm.
go." So they went off. And I was like, I want to avoid that. Remember, I'm trying to get my stuff together. Me and my best partners, two of my best partners. One of them ended up getting killed by the police uh, on a month after I got to jail. And we we go out, and say we went to a Mexican party and just to have fun, just to get out because everybody else went to go see Colors. And that after that, we ended up again, like I told you, we out there selling dope. That was my neighborhood, dope dealing everywhere. So one of my homeboys, Button, resting in peace, is out there selling dope, and we are talking, and some rival gang members pull up, and my homeboy, my dog, was Mexican, so they pulled up on him thinking that he was from a Mexican gang because this were a Mexican group. And so when he get into the argument, the confrontation, I jump up and get in it. Now at the time, we didn't have a gun on us. And we like, man, so we didn't know if they had a gun because they jumping out the cars with the cars, rabbit ears. So
Mm.
we like, man, but we doing our talking, throwing up our gang signs, doing what we do. And these guys who were grown men, remember we was at the time 15, 16, and they were 28, but we didn't know that at the time. Jump out the
Mm.
car, come around, and we ended up in a full fist fight. Now, in the fist fight, I'm fighting this grown man, and he kind of working me. So
Mm.
I pull out a knife and I stabbed him 19 times and stood over him. And we ended up taking their car and driving off. So that's how I ended up with a murder robbery. Now,
Mm.
At 16, I get arrested. I'm in prison now, man. I'm in jail. Never been there, never. And when I get there, I don't just have the murder that I'm in there for. They ended up piling four more murders on. So I was literally arrested at 16 with five accounts of murder, GTA, one attempt, and strong arm robbery. So this stuff was like, man, the talk of my neighborhood. And you talk about me, I had to grow up quick. So the courts tried me as an adult, said I was too sophisticated and my crimes were too severe. So I'm 16, man. I ain't never even had a California ID, but now I got a adult prison number, and I'm going to these adult courts. So they ended up trying me as an adult, sentencing me to 15 years to life in prison. But I was too young to go to the adult prison. So they had to send me to the youth authority. What they called it is house me at the youth authority until I was of age to be able to transition to CDC. And it was at the youth authority, that was both a blessing and a blessing, I guess, because, I did two things I can't tell you to save my life. I can't tell you how many fights I've had, and I can't tell you how many books I've read. And it was a blessing because there is where I acquired my education. There is where I actually received counseling and mentorship that changed my thinking. So by the time I got to prison, I ended up on the level 4 yard, one of the youngest shot callers on the yard. You see what I'm saying? Because of that development, because of that process. And but that was a whole nother monster. Being young, and I had this revolutionary spirit about myself. Malcolm was my favorite person, in the whole world at that time. And like I said, I was the type that learned quickly. And one of the things that I learned, one of my partners, I'm talking about this dude, man. We was enemies. He was a Crip, I was a Blood, named Coop from 60. And we didn't get along. I'm talking about at all, man. We was nah. Bloods and Crips. We didn't smoke after each other. We didn't drink after each other. We didn't sit in the same area. We didn't even sit in the same softbacks. We were that divided. But me and this guy came together over a book. He had a particular book I wanted to read. And I used to always see that book and I wanted to read that book bad. And I finally just walked over to him and said, man, can I, is that your book? Yeah, can I read that book? And we ended up becoming partners. And I told him in the juvenile hall, we both had life. He had a life sentence, I had a life sentence. And I told him, fuck that life sentence. We're going to get up out of here and we're going to start a nonprofit organization for youth and we're going to put youth through rites of passage. I told him this in 1993. I didn't come home till 2013. And we did just that, bro. We got out and we started a nonprofit organization geared towards mentoring at-risk youth called Motivate. We started man, and it's that's just the power, because of something when I want to get to that. It's just the power of it, But back to the prison, being in the prison, being the youngest dude there, I read a lot, I fought a lot. And I ended up in a lot of situations because the police now recognize me as a shot caller. So now I'm doing shoe terms, Now they messing with me for nothing. I'm talking about things happening on the yard. They coming to arrest me because you're the shot caller, you're the voice. And it got to one point where we had a riot and they ended up putting me in solitary confinement and without a write up, without nothing. So I'm just sitting in this hole, bro, for 98 days with no human contact. And they would let me out to shower every 3 days. And for large muscle, in which part of the shower was part of that 1 hour large muscle. So I stayed all this time up in there and I was battling. One of the things I never feared taking a loss in the fight. I never feared dying. I never, in fact, the way I lived, I welcomed those things. But what I feared the most was losing my mind. And being in that hole, it was tested to the ultimate test of me losing my mind because I'm hearing other people in the hole losing their mind because you can't hear it. I mean, you can't see them. You can only hear them. And the sound of a man losing his mind is a horrible thing, man. It's a horrible thing, and you wondering if it's gonna be your time. So I'm doing push-ups, man. I'm praying, and trying to. The police didn't want it because they knew that I was Muslim, and they didn't want to give me the Quran. And it was the trigger. So what they gave me is a Bible. And I read that Bible twice from cover to cover, from Genesis to Revelation, all 66 books, and then double back on Proverbs like 3 times, right? Because it had talked about a fool and a wise man. And my other sanity was writing poetry. And I wrote poetry all over the walls, man. All over the walls with a pencil. I would write it with a pencil, and then if you take your finger and smear it, it'll bulge itself on the wall. And I had the wall like that, covered in poetry. And that's how I ended up becoming a poet. And I use poetry now as a tool to mentor at-risk youth because I understand the power of spoken word and the power of art. And there's that power in it, and you see it when during the rap, culture, and why so many youth and kids gravitate towards the rap culture, and why big industries make sure that they have to control it, because there's a power in that spoken word. And I know this firsthand because it saved my sanity. It saved my sanity. And now I use it as a tool. I I'm in part of a program at Tia Chuchas in the San Fernando Valley, like I said, where we take trauma and transform it. It's called Trauma to Transformation Program. And we use art, tradition, culture to take trauma that these youth may be going through and transform it into something powerful. Because, energy, like experiences are like energy, man. Energy, you can't kill energy, just like you can't kill an experience.
Right.
Only thing that you can do is transfer that energy. Energy is transferable. And when experiences, we can transfer it. It's transferable. So we just got to give them the right tools to be able to do that. And I realized that poetry was one of those things for me. And I utilize it, for them. And so far it's successful, to be able to do that. But the thing about it is you got to be brutally honest. And that's the thing about my life experience, is being brutally honest about what it is that I've gone through and how I've come out the other end. Because that's where the healing is at. It's not going through it; it's coming out the other end.
If there was a at risk youth, or someone listening to this that knows an at risk youth that needed to try to contact or get in contact with a place where you mentor at, how would they be able to reach out to a place like that?
Yeah, you can look it up online or on online at tiachuchas.org, TIACHUCHAS, or CHA.org, or look up Trauma to Transformation Program, or you can look up timelessgroup.com, TIMLIST
Okay.
.com.
And I wanted to ask you, when you said that they wouldn't give you a Quran because they knew that you were Muslim, were you Muslim prior to going to jail, or did you?
No. I was actually Christian going to jail. I was Catholic. My mom was Catholic. My dad was Baptist. So, I went in with an open mind. And my great grandmother, was traditional. They said that she, used to practice a lot of Judaism, but she was more a traditionalist. And so when I got into the prison, I needed something to balance me out. I needed something for my spirit, because to take a life, something is taken from you. When you take a life, something is taken from you. And that something is an essential part of our humanity. So you got to have something to fill that in order to process a healing. It's kind of like if you take a gunshot, man, you got to pack the wound. If you don't pack the wound, you're gonna bleed out. So the same thing applies. When we have that type of when you take a life like that, you gouged out a womb inside of you, man. And that's why some people, you wonder why they're so inhumane. That inhumanity that you see in them, that apathy that you see in them, we would classify it as a sociopath, which was justifiably so. But what it is they've numbed themselves in such a way that they can no longer feel their humanity. Because if they do, all of that wrong that they've done is going to come down crushing on them. So you got to have something to pack that with to balance that out. And I found Islam to be that. It was that spirituality. One, because I didn't have to worship a man. I got the idea of that. You have to understand my nature back then. I was a rebellious kid. So for me to even think of having to worship a man, it was kind of beyond me. But to believe that there was this God, that my mind couldn't fathom, that was good enough for me. To be able to worship something that my mind can't conceive. So, but they knew that. The police knew that. And they didn't want to give me a Quran. That all I kept asking for, because I had no property. I kept saying, man, give me something, to read. Give me my Quran. And they were like, nah, we ain't got that for you, but we got this Bible for you. And they thought they did that in a joking way. They tried to do that in a humiliating way. But it was actually a blessing. Because they didn't know that, the Bible has spiritual principles too.
Right.
And so I started going into that, and I drew the spiritual principles from those Bible to get me through. And not only that, I got to bring up this sister that helped me too, that kept feeding me Eric Jerome Dickey books. It was a night lady, man, sister that I would never bang on the wall. I wasn't the type to be banging on the wall and jacking off while she walked by and yelling at her and doing all of this crazy stuff. So one day, she just stopped by and said something to me. And I don't remember what she said, but I said something back. And before I knew it, we started talking about a book. And she brought me a book, a Jerome Dickey book. And after I read it, I passed it back under the cell, and she would bring me another one. And I went through like 7 Jerome Dickey books. So I always bring that up, and it reminds me of how, like during slavery, when the men, were being tortured and shackled, the women would come by and breastfeed grown men in order for them to have nourishment and survive whatever, struggles or turmoils they were going through. Those books was an assimilative of that to me, because it was at a desperate time that I needed that. I needed those words, and she fed them to me, And so I ended up getting up out of there. Did I answer your question? I got sidetracked.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I basically was just asking, were you a Muslim prior to going to jail, or once you got? Because the reason why I was asking that, it's kind of a twofold question. You brought up, of course, going to jail, going to prison at 16 years old, and that your quote unquote enemy kept it G, and that one of your brothers or someone down with the same gang as you told on you. Now, the reason why I'm asking that and bringing that back up, because I would say maybe recently, not from my words, but someone, Wack100 had questioned your character of saying that when you went to jail, that you laid down your flag, stopped becoming a blood, and this and that. Were these was the Muslim and also the books, and then also the guy that was a part of your same set telling on you, were these all determining factors of the reason why, or what was the reason?
The reason why I became a Muslim, man, is because I needed somewhere for my soul to go when I died. Because see, death was real to me. Death was real to me. And see, I don't know what he thinking. He tried to make it seem like a dude going to prison and becoming a Muslim is a weakness. Islam in prison is a formidable group. That's not a weakness in the least. In fact, once you become a Muslim, your expectations are greater. Your character is more, at question. Because you got all sides looking at you. They expect you to be a beacon. Muslims were a community of every gang, consisted of every gang, former Crips, former Bloods, former BGF, former Vanguards, whatever they were formerly. They were now Muslims, and they were knitted together as a formidable group. Everybody knew that whenever there was a problem among the blacks, they would go to the Muslim in order to solve those problems. We were those people. Whenever there was a conflict, we were front and center.
Right.
So long as it wasn't a black on black, we was front and center. Whether it was against Mexicans, whites, police, whatever it was, the Muslim was front and center. Expected to be. So when he say, "Oh man, you laid down the flag," no, bro. I had already done everything I needed to do as a gang member. I had killed for it. I had fought for it. I've been fighting, from the time I got in there to the point where I was tired of fighting. He questioning my ability to fight. Man, I fight. That was what my reputation was. That's why I was like, man, I don't even respond to that stuff you talking about, dude. Because everybody that knew me know that this brother fought. And I don't know if he don't know that, that's his problem, but he can find out, if he wanted to. But
I'm definitely not, asking these questions for it to go in that direction.
No, I understand that, but that made me think about that. Like, man, right. Because he made it seem like being a Muslim was, a bad thing in the prison. That's not. That's like saying becoming a positive person, changing to a positive, becoming a boy, from a boy to a man is a bad thing. And that's insane because you got youngsters listening to your crazy butt. And that's the wrong message to be sending to them. Any type of individual development or personal growth should always be praised and commended. And that was the case in prison. When you became a Muslim up in there, they was like, man, and here's another thing. I got into a lot of, conflict in there because I didn't put down my flag. I hung up my bandana. There's a difference. I didn't lay down no flag. I hung up my bandana and I picked up a standard. After that, when I was in the gangs, in the Bloods, when I was in that car, I was at the top of the food chain. There was no peon in that group, or else I wouldn't have been able to walk away the way that I did and come back. Interaction, to be able to function with them the way that I did. Everything I did it to the best of my ability. When I was gangbanging, I did that to the best of my ability. Like I said, I was a gang member, whether I was in a group or by myself. So when that's questioned, no, man. Yeah, I became a Muslim in prison. In prison. But, still, never disassociated from where I was from. And that was a problem with the Muslims that had with me on the yard because they said, you're too close to your homeboys. Because I would always sell with my homeboys. And the reason why I sailed with my homeboys is because these were people that I knew. Like I told you, I come from a project environment. I know these people. I know their mama. Why would I want to go in the cell with somebody that I just met on the yard because we are the same, religious beliefs over a man that I grew up with and whose mama fed me? You see what I'm saying? So I was like, man, so I told the Muslims, I'm not disassociating with my homeboys. And then I told my homeboys, I'm Muslim. So watch what you say when you're around me and how you conduct yourself to me. And because of that, I went from being little evil to the point when I paroled, I was known as Mr. Hill. Think about that. I went in prison as little evil, and I came out as Mr. Hill. And I'm talking about these are reputable gang members, man, on all sides that referred to me as Mr. Hill. I earned that. I didn't buy that. I earned that. So when I go into juvenile halls and I talk to these kids and I tell them that the life that they live in and the life that these people are selling them is BS, I have a right to say that. And I say that unflinchingly.
So with it being, at towards the beginning of the interview, when you said it's a 6-year difference, when you were 16, he was 10. I'm wondering, where did this animosity, or I guess if people can call it slanderous approach or statements, even come from, if y'all didn't grow up together, if y'all wasn't out there in the streets banging together, if y'all didn't go to jail together or anything of that nature? Where did the confrontation or friction between you guys even come from?
Because one, I don't, to try to bring logic to something that's illogical is, illogical itself. That, you can't really get into the mind of something that's insane like that. I'm not a rapper. I'm not an entertainer. I'm not a podcaster. So why he would come up for me on social media, that's beyond me. But I understand that he knows that all of the stuff that he's portraying to do for homeboys and stuff, I'm actually on the street doing. So maybe he feels threatened by my work on the streets because he tries to disassociate, the youngsters from me, because it can be something you keeping me from in the industry, because I'm not seeking anything in the industry. I'm not in the music industry. I'm not like I said, a rapper or an actor. My life has been much too real to pretend anything. But what I am is a mentor. What I am is a brother that returned to his neighborhood to make a difference. And what I am is a voice to speak against whatever bull that he might be perpetuating. So I don't know what it is. Maybe I said something to a kid or a youth that got back to him that was unapproving of whatever his character is. Because I don't approve of a lot of the stuff that he do. I mean, think about it. He has a platform that he could really have done a lot of good in our community. But the only thing I ever hear from him is madness and screaming at things and ushering a bunch of stuff it ain't even true. Seeing how insulting he can be. And the only logic that I can get out of that is because it gives him ratings. It gives him, the money. The more people log on to, you got people that log on just to disagree with him. For him, that logging on is monetary gain. So when he gets up and he does all of that, that's the only logic that I can get from it. Like, man, you doing this to make money. You doing this to get hits on Instagram. But again, my life is much too real to be pretending anything. Not only that, you getting on Instagram saying all of this gang street stuff. Man, the police is on Instagram. They got task force on social media to catch pedophiles, drug dealers, prostitution, gangs. You understand?
Yeah,
definitely. And if you're professing to be in that street life and you're not aware of this, then you're the wrong person to be leading in anything or speaking, for that matter. So we talking about, I ain't never heard nobody get up with a bullhorn on the street corner and start professing their crimes. And we didn't do that. And like Big Y said, the only followers that we had was somebody trying to smoke you. So, we're not interested in that. I don't get that. So with me, when I see people on social media, either, professing crimes or pretending to portray a certain level of gangsterism, and you have not been touched by the police, that makes me look at you either as it's entertainment and the law knows it's entertainment, or, you got police in your pocket. You've made it that big. There's no other way around it, man. Logically. So how am I to take it? I mean, you put my government name out there. He spoke my name. Why would you do that, man? You see what I'm saying? I'm not like I said, I'm not a rapper. And who are you talking to? Because you know where I live. You know my family. So who
So,
are you talking to when you get on there and you do all of that?
so I'm assuming that you guys, haven't spoke. If there was, would you be interested in even holding a conversation with him